All right. Hello.
Hi.
All right. Welcome to The Harvest, Episode 3. Episode 3, where we talk everything cinema and story. And when we learn, you learn. When we grow, you grow. I'm Xavier Garcia.
I'm Jonathan Garcia.
Cool. So today, I've got my show notes here. Today, we're going to be sharing exactly how we produced an award-winning film, an award-winning short film, in less than 2 months, from beginning to end with a budget of only $1,200.
Yeah, I had a lot of fun with this project.
Yeah.
It was a quick turnaround, but you don't realize how much in just that short amount of time you put into it.
Yeah, we're going to highlight the importance of surrounding ourselves with like-minded team members and having the motivation to work towards your goals, no matter the obstacles that are going to come.
Right.
We know that happens every time. All right, let's get started. So, first thing, let's jump right into the purpose of story. We're going to talk a little bit about the story process and how we went along with it and how it came to be, if you want to start us off with that.
Yeah, I mean, story is the heartbeat of a movie. It's what keeps everything going. Without story, you don't have a movie. You just have cool images. And there's a lot of that on YouTube. There's a lot of that on Vimeo. But what engages the audience is story.
Yeah.
Story, as they say, and you say this a lot of time, is king.
Yeah, absolutely. It's the drama. It's a character that has a desire, and obstacles are coming against that desire. And he or she, the protagonist, chases after it as the antagonist is trying to keep him from it. And we enjoy that ride. We enjoy that ride, those reversals, the climaxes. And interestingly enough, the process for Underground and the story process for Underground was unique in that we didn't begin it like we normally begin.
Right.
Whereas, you and I are shooting around ideas. It actually began as a result of a Friday night Cast of Faith workshop. Yeah, that's right. We had a series of stories that we had discussed we wanted to pursue, and a lot of ideas were shot out. It was a big group of us, and we were writing them down. We kind of came up with our top 10, and we voted. Yeah. And the idea of Underground, this short film, was, I think, maybe one of two that we decided, okay, this one's good, and then there's another one that was good, which we're actually playing with and writing even now as we speak. How long was that process?
The workshop, I would say I believe it was within a month and a half, I believe.
Yeah. The whole thing from beginning to end, was 2 months.
Yeah.
Which is amazing.
Yeah. And the workshop is actually what took longer.
Yeah, it did. It's funny that you say that because we were discussing about the story a little bit longer, just kind of shooting around different ideas. Mm-hmm. And I think we should highlight that for a second, because sometimes people don't know, like, where do ideas come from? Like, how do I get my next big idea? Mm-hmm. And something that we did for this, which really worked for us, was the collaborative process, and all of us just kind of engaging in things that we haven't seen on television or in the cinema, and we would love to. And that's where all these ideas for these shorts that we put down on paper, these top 10s, came from.
Right. Yeah, and I think the thing about ideas is, you're always concerned, taking ideas and getting ideas from other people, and is this even a new idea? I mean, one of the things that the scriptures, for me personally, the Bible says that there's nothing new under the sun. So we know that a lot of things are made or remade with the generation's point of view, with that time of its point of view. So ideas are, they've come and they've gone. How can you reinvent the idea is kind of what we were discussing. How can we reinvent the ideas that we came up with?
Well, it's a part, I think the story develops based off of the individual's perspective that's writing it. I think, right. Yeah, you're absolutely right. Like, I feel like every story that can be told has been told. Right. Every genre has been explored. However, we are all unique individuals with unique pasts, right, with unique perspectives, with unique upbringings and experiences, and all of that applies to how you take a story and create, unique characters, circumstances, obstacles, challenges, desires, and all of that is connected to the individual writing. And so as you're pouring yourself into it, who was it that said, I want to say, I'm forgetting the name of the author. He says writing and writing story is essentially you go to your typewriter and you just bleed. And you just writing is going to your typewriter, and for us going to our computer and just bleed. And so it's like it's essentially your life pouring into it. You're pouring your life into that. So that's kind of what was interesting about us, that we had all these ideas. They were all different, but we were like, okay, it's going to be unique because we're unique.
Right, and at the end of the day, too, we're human beings, so human beings want to relate with human beings. So if you have an idea, it's okay if it's similar to other ideas, because the audience wants to relate with you. They want to say, "Oh, that's happened to me before." And as they see the protagonist go through their, character arc, they're like, "Oh yeah, I can relate with that." So ideas don't have to be something from like some other planet where it's never experienced. Ideas are within the world of your audience so that they can relate with it.
Yeah, and the team working process also opens up the opportunity for new ideas to come in, a perspective that perhaps you may have not seen.
Right.
We had a lot of that in our group discussions. We got into a round circle and we just, we had some snacks. It was a late night thing. We were all just talking and throwing ideas into the pot about how so-and-so, how this character can move, that character can relate with this other character and all that. So that helps. That helps. However, the story of Underground, specifically the one that we chose, we wanted to take a new approach to that, because Underground deals with the Underground Railroad and the plight of the African American during the 1850s, especially and specifically after the the Slave Act. Here this 1851 Slave Act is passed, and people have the right now, as authorized by law and by government, where if you have a piece of your property that has run away, a slave that has run away, you have every legal right to go and bring him back or her back or whatever by force.
Right.
The Free Slave Act. And so we were looking at this and we're like, okay, we've seen a ton covered this subject and this idea, but what haven't we seen? And that's kind of what that personal element of us being put into an idea really came to play, because we've seen the stories from both perspectives, from the African American perspective, from the white man's perspective, as far as like how they handled the pressures of slavery and freedom and all that. But we were like, okay, these individuals, especially people like Harriet Tubman, even you're fast forwarding like 100 years later and you're talking about Martin Luther King, all these individuals were divinely inspired,
right?
And that's something that we hadn't really seen done on television. Just how, for example, in our script, we have our protagonist say that he literally heard the audible voice of God lead him on a mission. And that's something that we know that Harriet Tubman, we know it's documented that she heard the voice of God say, turn left, turn right, stop here, don't go in there, lead them this way.
I think that's amazing. I mean, where have you seen a movie answer the question, where was God during that time? Yeah. I mean, that's huge. In this short film, we're basically saying, this is what God said to this man. This is what God was doing at this time. And I don't think that Hollywood would ever take that approach in their filmmaking. No, they're always
it's controversial, and it's digging deep into some areas that are going to ruffle some feathers the wrong way. I mean, here you're saying that the winner, the champion in freeing the slaves wasn't so and so. It wasn't Lincoln. It wasn't in one individual. It was God.
Yeah.
And that's tough. For Hollywood to make that kind of a claim.
But these people ask questions. But people ask these questions. Where was God? But they never get the answer.
Right. And that's what we wanted to explore. Right. That God was speaking to individuals, that people were moving, that there were many that were engaged and involved in the process, that were hearing from God spiritually, that were just in their hearts were convicted certain ways and were moved in certain ways as they were biblically led to take action. And that's what we wanted to show. Show a man whom had everything, wealth, position, his family, and he was willing to give it all up, to lose it all, because of a call that was put upon him to doing something unique, something extraordinary about the slavery issues that were now coming close to home. And this is based in New Bedford, which was fun for us. We decided to keep it local. Let's make it based in New Bedford. You're from the area. I mean, well, you went to school in the area.
Yeah, I went to UMass Dartmouth, so it was very familiar. I got to go down and take a look at the area. And the area is beautiful. It's so rich in history. The renovations of New Bedford look amazing. They were so welcoming to this project. Yeah. I mean, the historic society there and all the resources that they gave us and the free reign that they allowed us to enter in. And, it was awesome. It was awesome working with New Bedford.
Yeah, it really was. You know what? I think we just naturally kind of shifted right into the pre-production aspect of it, because that's something that was really key. The collaborative, nature of what we do. And we, right off the bat from the very beginning, I know we had discussed, okay, well, what kind of a budget do we want to, we want to have for something like this? And I think I think maybe it was me, I don't know who it was, or someone had the audacity to say zero, zero. Let's try and make this for $0. And we did, and we're like, okay, let's do it. Let's do that. Let's see how many people will come around and rally around a good story.
That's it, right there.
And we were like, let's just make the story great, and then let's see how many people want to collaborate and become a part of it. And when we did that, and when we we put a story to paper, and individuals were looking at it, they were like, you know what? I want to donate my time. I want to donate my equipment. I want to donate my space. Right. And that's how we were able to work with the city of New Bedford. We were able to work with the city of Salem. We were able to work with 256 Media. We were able to work with, Skippy, who came on board to, doing phenomenal makeup work. He was like, you know what? I'm going to donate all of my makeup, and I'm going to donate my time, and all because of a great story. Right.
And you can't invest, you can't ask someone, I'm making this, would you help us buy for equipment? They're not going to just invest because you have great equipment, or they're not going to invest because you have a great location, although these things help, but the story is where you'll get your investment from.
Yeah, and that's why when we talk to people about story and about writing, take your time during the script writing process. Take your time, really, really, really work on, think of every single word. Every word on there has a dollar value to it. Every word, the thes, the he's, the pronoun, all of it. It has a dollar value. And so if you're thinking about it from that perspective, it's like, okay, make every word count. Mm-hmm. Make it purposeful. Mm-hmm. Think about it, and even with dialogue, think about it. Don't just throw it down because it sounds, snappy and it's cool.
Or you just want to move on to the next section, next scene.
Think it through, work it through, workshop it, argue with someone about it, get passionate about it and go back and forth. Talk to other people about it. Hear yourself reading this thing out loud over and over again, but work out all of the kinks during the script writing process. Why go into filming when you've got problems? You're like, oh, I've got a problem in my third act. It just doesn't work. Well, why start filming? Mm-hmm. Fix it when it's the cheapest. Writing is the cheapest phase. It's time, sure, but it beats having to add production days and wasting all these other people's times on this in this machine we call film, because you didn't take the time when you had it to fix your story.
Right, and a lot of times that's usually just plot holes, plugging those things in. And we realize in our writing, the best way to fix those was working within your world. So you created this world of a story. You put your boundaries inside that world. And then you're like, how can I fix this plot hole within my world? Yeah,
with the resources you're saying that I have, and the space that
within that story.
That is typical. That's the best way. The best way, literally. What do you have available to you? Who is it? Robert Rodriguez, the filmmaker that did Desperado. When he first did, Desperado, he had or even before Desperado. What was the film right before Desperado that he did there? Not Once Upon a Time in Mexico. El Mariachi.
Yeah.
El Mariachi.
Yeah.
When he did El Mariachi, he like did it out of like change out of his pocket.
Mm-hmm.
But what did he do? He's like, okay, who do I know? What do I have available to me? What equipment do I have? And do I have a good story? And he did, and he made it for like, change, and which led to 3 films, three subsequent films, and now he's a great. I mean, he's always
it's
has
not
been.
just within the story, but it's also within equipment. It's also within people. Exactly.
That led to a lot of our partnerships with the Whaling Museum, partnerships with the Historical Society, partnerships in Salem with the Maritime National Historical Society and the Maritime National Parks Museum. Why? Can you talk a little bit about why you think that so many people were inspired?
I think so. New Bedford has a rich history in the abolitionist movement, the Underground Railroad, and there hasn't, that I know, the research that I did, hasn't been a very there hasn't been a lot of movies made. Especially in New Bedford, about New Bedford's history, and they're just so eager. They're so eager to tell the world, look at what the good we did in that time, and look at even
New Bedford was known as an extremely multicultural, really liberal world at that time. Like in the 1850s, there was a ton because of the whaling industry.
Right.
There were people from all cultures, all backgrounds, and they were all helping one another.
I mean, there was cool things, a lot of little facts that we found out. They would blast alarms or bells before when they saw hunters come on shore to let everyone know, hey, hunters are coming in from the south to look for their slaves. Yeah. And I thought that just little things like that is so, put that in there. That's great story to show tension and build of suspense. So there's a lot that you can do with research.
So our associate producer, Molly, she happened to just kind of walk into the Whaling Museum. She was listening to someone tell some stories about New Bedford, and she just raised her hand and started asking questions and struck up a conversation with Diane Sullivan, who's she leads tours there at the museum. And in conversation, one thing led to another about how we're writing this story, and she connected us with eventually with the mayor. And the mayor found out that we were trying to create this story, and the mayor's office was like, well, whatever it is that you need in our city in order to make this story, like, it's yours, which is what led us to be able to shut down Rose Alley, the historical Rose Alley. That was really fun to be able to just film on that street that was actually around in the 1850s and was known for, every time ships were to come on and fresh new whale oil was coming off, it would come up that alley, and and even runaway slaves that were looking for shelter, they would be brought up Rose Alley. And so we were like, okay, we get to shut down and use Rose Alley, all around the fact that we had written a great story, no cost. The mayor was like, no, we'll waive all the costs because what you guys are doing is important. It highlights our community in a very positive light. That was awesome.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And the production design was already there.
Yeah.
It was already there.
You didn't need to do anything because all of that stuff is well preserved, and it was beautiful.
Yeah.
Same thing with us being able to use the bonded warehouse in Salem, which is where the majority of the film is set. It's inside that bonded warehouse. We were doing some location scouting in Salem, looking for an awesome interior, and we stumbled upon the museum at the bonded warehouse there at the Maritime Museum. And when we looked inside and we read the script, it was literally verbatim.
Oh, yeah.
You remember the moment when we were looking, because there's an old toy. Can you talk a little bit about that?
So in the script, there's a powerful moment for the protagonist where he uncovers in his warehouse, while he's preparing to try to find a space to hide the slaves, he uncovers an old toy of his son, who you find out in the story
the horse.
Passed away, and it was a rocking horse. And we're like, where are we going to find an 1850s rocking horse? Did they even have one back then? And we're like, we'll wait. We'll keep asking. We'll go online. We'll search. The moment we got to the location, you were there by yourself. Yeah. I couldn't make it.
Yeah. I had you on the phone.
Which is a no-no for cinematographers. Cinematographers, DPs should always go with the directors to go look at sets. But anyways...
well, you had been there for we had been in that area for a while now, and we had looked at a bunch of places, and I went back, and I just felt there's got to be one more place.
And when Xavier walks in, there is on top of old barrels a rocking horse.
The rocking horse that we couldn't even we were looking for one for the film, and we couldn't find one, the one that we wanted, the specific one, and it was already there on display.
What is a rocking horse doing in
a bonded warehouse?
It was awesome. That's when we knew, like, all right, that's the Lord.
This is the location. This is it. It was perfect.
Yeah.
And
so it was great.
It was awesome.
The set location like that, and just and trusting that you'll be able to find when you do your research, you'll find what will work within your script. It's out there.
Yeah, and so it comes down to your networking, connecting, talking to people, showing them your story, and getting people involved and engaged, and that's how these things spread, and everybody wants to be a part of it, and that's how, as we connected with more individuals and creatives to come on board to work on this project, more opportunities opened up, such as this bonded warehouse one. How long would you say, more or less, the pre-production process was from finished script to finished storyboards, all of our top downs, all of our, we also animated. We did some animations and all of that stuff. How long would you say before we started?
So it was a quick turnaround, but we knew we couldn't skip the storyboarding and having top down lighting designs of everything. One of the programs that we used was Shot Designer and just the basic templates online for storyboarding. And it only took us really kind of just like 2.5, 3 weeks.
Yeah, I think it was about that. 2.5.
Yeah, and what made it long was the fact that because we had thought we wanted to work with a different location.
Yeah, that's right.
We started sketching out the storyboard on it until you find the rocking horse, and you're like, no, that's it. And I would agree with you 100%. But that's one of the most important things is find your location, settle it, then go to the next phase. Storyboard, start designing your set outline so that you can start putting in your lighting and where everything's in the camera movement and the actors blocking. Because if you start doing all that stuff and then you have your location, you're not going to take advantage of the camera's movement and all the creative ideas that you can do in the set. You're just going to point and shoot, move it here, point and shoot. And your lights are not going to be moved. They'll probably be stationary, and you'll be like, all right. But you have to take the time that when you go in that set, you plan. So that pre-production phase is critical so that you know on paper what your movie is going to look like. And
not just, every single step along the way. Yeah. And it doesn't mean that you have to stick to it. You can be inspired at that moment. It's like, okay, here are my shots. First we got to get all of our coverage, and then you're gonna zoom in and do your twos, and you're gonna do your OTSs and all that stuff, and then you've got all that because it was all on paper, and then something you're just inspired by something you're seeing, and you're just like, no,
this has to change because this is awesome.
But you gotta do the
limitations will come. We don't have an outlet over here, or I got to move the light over here. It can't be over there. So how am I going to realign this light? You didn't think about those things when you were writing and drawing it down, which you should. But sometimes they say, oh, we can't have the lights on. This is a historical place, or you can't put your cameras over by those crates over there because those are
which happened to us.
Those are museum pieces.
We had planned to fog the entire area. And the type of fog that we were going to use, some of the chemicals and the equipment, inside of it, that got shut down the day of because they had sent a curator over to kind of supervise the whole thing. They're like, no way. Some of the stuff was actually literally built back in the 1700s. Yeah. And if you guys damage it with harsh light or with the fog, smoke, and stuff like that, so they shut that down, which created for some challenges on the day of production. Now, how do you mentally prepare for challenges? Because I know you and I are unique in that we bring almost like an athletic approach to how we film. We're both former athletes, NCAA athletes, and so we bring that kind of an approach and mentality to filming. So how do you deal with those types of obstacles? Like, for example, when someone says, oh, this bonded warehouse can't support your tungsten lights that you brought, and you can't do fog. How, as a DP,
so one of the things that we did, even for that, we had a tough time getting lighting in a specific area, and what they said was, you can't put the light over there. There's all these museum pieces. But awesome thing was we found there was a window, tinted window, kind of, like...
Yeah, it was. I think it was more of like a show window. Yeah. It wasn't supposed to be an actual window. Right.
So, we're like, throw a generator outside. Let's throw a light through that window. But what we couldn't do at first was because it is a museum place and people are walking outside in Salem. You can't just have lights and equipment out there. We had to wait till the sun, came down, and then less people were outside, and then you throw the light on. So we had to,
with our timing a little bit.
Yeah, so we had to know, obviously, these are the things you need to know. You need to know where the sun is coming from, east-west, where it's hitting, where the shadows are going to be. That's why, again, pre-production is so important of the location.
Planning.
And so you have to kind of prepare yourself for certain limitations. If this happens, what do you do?
Yeah.
That you can try and plan for that. You can try and plan for it. If I have no lights, I have no plugs, how am I going to use light for this place? Well, I can try to open these doors, open these windows, bounce some lighting in through that. So those are the things that we had to do going in because it was a museum.
Yeah. I'm glad you brought that up. So I'm going to digress for a second and just talk a little bit about us as athletes. We coached high school track, had coached high school track for about 4 or 5 years. And something that, as a result of our own track, collegiate track careers, having done really well in sports, we felt as though we wanted to give back to our community, and we did. But something that was key in our approach to training them was the planning, right? Mm-hmm. And one of the exercises that I loved doing with my athletes was, the visualization, seeing themselves going through the race,
right?
And seeing themselves, how they're going to approach the start coming out of the blocks, how they're going to approach that explosive beginning, how they're going to approach that first turn, how they're going to approach that straightaway when lactic acid starts to hit and your body starts to, cramp up and tighten up. At what point are you going to make your pass? Are you going to do it before the cones, after the cones, talking about indoors at the Reggie Lewis Center, how you time all that stuff. And we would plan it, and I would have them visualize it and see themselves and rehearse it. Mm-hmm. They would rehearse their race in their mind. And it's never going to go exactly that same way. There's so many variables. It's not like you can control
the other runners. But you
have
something to think about while you're running. That way your mind isn't just... Because when you're running, you're just so focused on the race.
Much happens,
But you've already stored into your mind subconsciously or consciously the muscle memory of the race.
Yes. Yeah. And so you've done so much of this planning so that when you get into it and things don't go the way that you planned, you've seen it done in your brain so many different scenarios in so many different ways. You've visualized it so that you can immediately just right then and there just shift gears and adjust.
I was fully control of my body. When I was racing, I was fully control of my body, brain, body, everything. And I knew when my kick needed to be because I've already thought about it before. And I said, if I'm at this point and feeling this way, this is when I do it. If I'm at this other point and I'm weak or strong, this is when I do it. And I was always ready, and the racer never knew. It was like, oh wow, he's kicking it in early. But I remembered if I was feeling this way, I was going to do it, and I stayed committed to what I prepared.
Right, and you did your homework. You did your homework as far as other athletes. Okay, this guy likes to put his kick in late. This guy never does. This guy usually runs out of just steam early, and so you were able to translate that and say, no, I'm going to stick to my plan, and I'm going to follow through. Now, I want you to talk briefly how that translates onto the film set. You've when something then happens, you can just adjust.
Right. Power goes out. The generator, or should I say the fuse blows.
Yeah.
I prepared to make sure that I would have had the doors open because it was during the daytime. Let's say it was during the nighttime. I already prepared to bring a generator.
Yeah.
Let's say
couple of them.
Yeah, right. Let's say a battery dies. You know what I mean? Or we have no more batteries.
You've planned that out. You've got your systems.
Right,
you've got your checks. You've got your balances. You've got a team that you communicate really well with.
And most of the time, it is technical problem. Most of the time, it's just technical problem.
You get your every once in a while emotional, crew member type thing, especially working with volunteers, which we'll make that a future episode talking about how to work with volunteers because we've done that a lot.
Right. As long as you have food on set, you are good. Actors will not care, and they will eat.
Feed them well. Have some arroz, habichuelas, arroz con gandules. I hear you. Now, just kind of to wrap up this part about the production process, I did want to talk about how important it is. And although we had decided from the very beginning that we were going to do this on a zero budget, at the end of the day, time is money.
Right.
And all of those people that are there volunteering their time, that's costing them something. And so you owe it to them to be planned to the T, and to be in control and to know what you're doing, especially as a director. Myself, talking as a director, like I need to be confident in the decisions that I'm making, and I can't be if I haven't done my homework ahead of schedule and have really been, religious about it. And so
everyone will follow your tempo, your mood, and your professionalism, just everything based on your preparation.
Yeah, and being prepared helps when things come at you. I've worked with directors in the past that weren't prepared, and when something happened, they blew up and changed the entire dynamics of the set and turned it into a set you just didn't want to be in, but like if you are prepared and things like that happen, you react immediately, with joy, because you're like, I know I've got a solution, and everybody stays upbeat, everybody stays positive, everybody stays, joyful and happy because you've got that solution. And obviously, and we pray on our sets too, just to make sure that as we are dealing with these people, we're doing so with humility, with peace, with joy, checking ourselves constantly, checking our hearts, and making sure that we're running a set that exudes that.
Yeah, and I don't know a set that I've ever been where there hasn't been friction.
Yeah,
it's gonna happen. I remember when we were the cinematography that was pre-created, storyboarded, was to tell the specific story that was on script. And then you got people with ideas that feel a little too confident, right, to come in and express them. That happens in every set.
Yeah,
and you have how you handle that will show how far you're going to get into this industry.
And that's an anomaly that occurs specifically with the volunteer situation. When people are, when you're on a set, you're on a union set, you're on a SAG set, and everybody is paid. People, the rule is, do your job. Don't do somebody else's. Do yours and do it excellently, right? It doesn't quite work that way in a volunteer space because everybody is trying to put something on the resume, and learning and knowing how to handle that is something that I can't wait to talk about in the next episode because, it is a real, especially
that is an episode
in
all
indie
on its own,
filmmaking. Yeah, that's huge. Okay, we're going to talk real briefly about the post-production process. Let's switch gears a little bit because the editing for this needed to be as quick, if not quicker, than the pre-production and production because, again, time is money. Yeah. Right? Can you talk a little bit about all the 3D stuff and all?
Yeah. One of the things just before that, I remember one of the things that I used to do. So we used to do a lot of different types of filmmakings. We helped with wedding, we helped with commercial work, and we were point shoot.
Guerrilla, very guerrilla style. When we first started in our filmmaking.
When you do story, you get the shot that tells the story best, and that's it. That's all you need. Yeah. You don't need. I need this angle. I need to get this angle. Oh, I'll be cool. I might need this other angle because if I miss this, that's unnecessary. If
overkill,
you have the shots that you need for your story. If you have one shot for a whole minute, but it tells and it builds a suspense, then that's the shot that you need.
And that's the purpose of the story. Then you take that.
Exactly. Yeah. So when you take that into post and you have 8 shots for like a 2-minute scene or 3-minute scene, then those were the best shots to tell your story, and that's okay.
Yeah.
You want to tell the story. You don't want to focus on awesome cinematography. Awesome cinematography will happen when your story is being told perfectly.
Exactly. Woo.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And so because we had planned that, the editing process actually happened
really quickly.
We edited this on DaVinci Resolve. I'm actually a huge fan of the new edit features. DaVinci Resolve traditionally has been a color correcting and a color grading program software, but recently they released, within the last few years, not so recent, but they have released certain updates that allow you to edit, allow you to design sound, allows you to do even to a certain degree 3D work on it and export. All in one.
Yeah. It's the program. It has composition to create composition.
Like and it's free.
And
it's free. DaVinci Resolve. It's free.
Yeah, I think it only can't do 4K, right?
It's okay. Audio's going. And what's amazing about that is that even though it's free. It does have the upgrade ability. You can go, 4K. Or I think they charge like the pro version. I think it's for like if you wanna export 8K, 4K. You want to do different and unique, more high end things that the average filmmaker doesn't. But we use DaVinci Resolve. We use the pro version because we knew we wanted to export this thing. We filmed it in 8K.
Right.
We filmed it in 8K and we were going to bring it down to 4. We were like, well, we want to have the option of exporting 8 maybe.
Yeah, and you need it for when you're doing 3D. One of the programs that we use was Blender and After Effects. And when you're working with 8K, that's the perfect type of, you need that for green screening, removal, blue screen, whatever, keying, all that stuff out. And then adding your composition, camera, tracking, all those things that we did. We had 2 great shots. One was a boat shot, and one was just more back scene buildings. And 8K footage is amazing for that.
It was awesome. And so because, again, the original, the story that we had written, then it brought together a team that brought the right equipment that allowed us to do certain things that we didn't, think we'd be able to do. We were able to shoot in 8K. We were able then, therefore, because we shot in 8K, make the 3D process a little bit easier. And the post-production was about a month, right? If that.
Yeah.
I mean, there was still some lingering things that we were doing well after that, but that's just because kind of life got in the way, and so and we knew we needed to move on to other projects, and so the bulk of it, the majority of it was completed within that 2-month period. There were little things I think we're still right now we're waiting on mixing and mastering the sound. It's there, but just little things that are lingered. But the bulk of it was done, and it was done quickly, which was really amazing and impressive, and a testament to both first and foremost story, which allowed to bring the right group of people together to work on this, and planning, which made it so that even the post-production process was aided and supported by a great pre-production planning, which was great.
Yeah.
Now, when we're done, just talk about, we'll only take a couple minutes here. We can cap this off because we're kind of in the deliverables section. We've gone through all 5 phases of production. We talked about the research and development when writing script. We talked about, the pre-production, production, post-production, and now talk just briefly about the deliverables. And we'll talk about it more so from the perspective of choosing the right film festival.
Yeah.
Can you talk about a little bit about that, how you were led?
So, and I know that in episode 1 we discussed this a little bit about the right festivals to choose. And when you're dealing with a topic such as this for underground, the underground movement, the Underground Railroad, you have to find festivals that are hungry for this.
Yeah.
They know where that content needs to be.
Yeah, certain demographics, certain areas, certain parts of the country, certain festivals. If you read up as to their history and what they promote and what they are there for, what they stand for, what they desire and want, you can do a little bit of research and see, okay, you know what? This is a film about the Underground Railroad, the plight of African American slaves back in the 1850s, and so where would this appropriately live? Now, the fact that we have a major faith component behind this also opened up the door for us to put this into Christian film festivals.
Right.
ICFF being the largest one in the country, the International Christian Film Festival based out of Florida, Orlando. We wanted to do that, and we submitted, and it got in, and it got nominated for Best Short Film. And then coronavirus hit and canceled everything.
Right. That's unfortunate, but yeah, it's definitely that film festival is awesome.
It is,
and
it's
there's
so
a lot
big.
of resources there. Meeting producers, meeting other actors, and you realize where that short film that you create, where it could go after that. That's basically the source of
and you created and submitted again for that networking opportunity to talk about the skill set. I think the one thing that Underground communicates is how much can be done, right, with so little. And I'm talking money-wise. Like, how much can be accomplished when you've got great story, you've got great planning, and you've got a passionate team of like-minded individuals that are all united for a similar purpose and desire, and they all have the same work ethic. And that's super important too, building a team around you of individuals that are like-minded and that think like you think as far as their ideology and theology behind work and work ethic. We're hard workers. Yeah. We love to work hard. We literally have like a guilty pleasure. Like
and
working
it's so
hard
refreshing
is good.
Finding those people that are like, what do you want? What do you do? Yeah, whatever. Boom, 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 move it around. Like, that is so refreshing that you're not like that they have so much desire to be involved in this project, whether voluntarily or paid, to be like, I want to see this thing be born.
Take your time during that selection process. It's like, this is the one opportunity where you actually have the ability to choose your family. They say like, you can't choose your family, but you could choose your friends. Well, you can choose your film family, and take your time with that. Because those are the people that you're going to grow with, you're going to evolve with, you're going to mature with, and become better with.
And they'll understand the way that you write, the way that you tell story, how you want it seen. They'll, before you even talk, they'll talk, and they'll say everything for you.
And we've got great examples of that. Look at Scorsese. Like, he grew up with De Niro. He grew up with that crew. As like you go back to New York, where he grew up with, he gathered his neighborhood friends, and he's like, let's make some awesome movies. And he chose to surround himself with people that had the same work ethic as him. Right. And here we are, like however many years later, from like Raging Bull and some of the original classics, here we are looking at some of the work that he's doing now with the same people. Literally the same people. What was the most recent film that came out straight to Netflix that he just did? And I'm blanking out because it's like I'm catching myself on the spot. The Irishman.
Right.
Yeah, with the same exact group of people that he grew up with. So think about that. Think about yourself now, and about when yourself as a filmmaker and the people that you decide to surround yourself with. It's important. I'll leave you with this one quick story. It's a biblical story. When Jesus was preaching, and I can't remember the town, but I do remember the event that he was preaching, and the house was packed. And the house was packed, and the paralytic, his friends, there was this man that was paralyzed, right? And his friends had heard that Jesus was going to be in their town and he was going to be preaching at this home. And so they picked him up, right, in his bed because he couldn't move. And they carried him to where Jesus was. But when they got to the house, it was packed. The house was literally over. There was no way in. And so they were like, okay, we have to get our friend in here. We've heard great stories of this guy, this prophet, Jesus, whom heals the sick and the broken. And so they were like, we got to get him in. And so they couldn't. The windows were full, the doors were full, the house was full. And so what did they do? They went on the roof, right? And so they tear the roof. They open up this hole in the roof in order to put him and lead him down into the center of this.
Destroying this person's home.
Yeah, they destroyed this guy's roof. They put him into the home, and it was in the middle of a meeting, And Jesus sees this guy, and he looks up and he sees his friends. He sees this guy's family. And what does he say to him? He says, today, you are well. And again, I'm paraphrasing, but he essentially says, you're healed because of the faith of your friends. And he says, he looks at the faith that his friends have to believing that he could be healed if they could just get him into the house. And because of that, he's healed. And I think about that, and I think, oh, wow, the importance of choosing friends, friends whom are going to be those that because of their faith, because of their work ethic and their desire to see you succeed and you to see them succeed, like you guys literally grow and bless one another.
Yeah,
that's so important.
Yeah. That is the avenue of the success for your film, when everyone is in agreement like that.
Cool. So we're at the end, and now it's time for our creators tip of the week. Creators tip of the week. Jonathan, what do you got?
So let's see. I got here because we talked about Underground, and I want to talk a little bit about cinematography. I thought of 3 YouTube channels that are awesome. It's like a must, so that you can understand the basics and also the techniques and tips and awesome advanced things about cinematography. And the first one is Cooke Optics. It's Hollywood DPs, the best of the best. And they talk about their ideas, what they did, their low budget tricks, their, all the awesome things that you were like, wow, I didn't know I could do that. I thought I needed millions of dollars, but they do all these DIY things all the time, and it's awesome. The next one is Indy Mogul. Ted Sim, he used to be working for a lighting company, which I still think he does, but he joined the team. He's been awesome. He's been bringing in also Hollywood DPs, but they actually break down overhead shots and lighting setups and the ideas that they had for where the camera was and how it was moving, why it was moving that way.
Yeah.
Awesome stuff.
Which is super important. I think sometimes people forget that even the movement of the camera is part of the story.
Yeah,
it's moving, the speed, the angle, the direction, all of that is connected to the story that you're trying to tell. And they do a pretty good job at explaining what certain things like that mean. Yeah, they're pretty good.
Yeah. And the third one, which talked about in episode 2, was Studio Binder. Binder, they give you like a 2-3 minute kind of video explaining how to shot list and how to write down what you see, get organized.
They have a lot of resources.
Yeah, awesome resource stuff. And I think it's great. And they talk and they break down movies that are out, in theater, and they say, why was this shot the way that it was, and they break it all down. So that's really cool.
Is that stuff free or
all free on YouTube? Yeah, just Cooke Optics, Indy Mogul, and Studio Binder.
Wow, that's cool. And I know that they also have on their websites, they have paid memberships if you want to get deeper into some of the resources that they offer. Yeah. If you are so inspired by their free content, you can go to their sites and get in even deeper.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. My creator's tip of the week is actually a service, ChristianCasting.com.
Yes.
ChristianCasting.com is run by Mae Poore. She runs an awesome service. And I think we were talking about growing with people that have that same kind of work ethic as you do. And something that I love about Laura is her work ethic and her relentlessness about, servicing your needs for your film. That's something that I think we didn't really get to talk about, the casting process and how to find the right actor and all that. And I think that could be something that we could do at a later episode. But But yeah, she's on point, and I know that she's currently in the process of building out a much larger network for Christian casting,
and it's already big. I mean, it's really big.
Yeah, and the site is up. It's ChristianCasting.com, and you can also sign up whether you're a creator or you're an actor, you're a director, you're a producer. I mean, there's a space for you within the world that she's building, the Christian casting world. And I know that she's growing really quickly just because, again, work ethic. People just love someone that's well planned, that's well versed in what they're doing, that's confident and is eager to help others, and that's who she is. And so that's my creator's tip of the week. So if you're looking for casting help, it's affordable. She has some great packages. She talks to you about your budget and works with you, and it's great. And it's helped us a lot in a lot of the work that we've done, even in New England. She's not based in New England. I think it's in the Maryland area. However, she works with people all over. I think all over the world. I think she's actually helped. I mean, I know that we worked with some guys from Germany for our last work, and I know that they know about Christian casting too. So that's pretty interesting.
Yeah, she's got good partnerships too with a lot of some of the movies that are even out right now.
Cool.
That was awesome. I enjoyed this.
Yeah. Thank you all for joining The Harvest. So special thanks to our new producer, Alana Dispena. She's rocking it. She's actually behind the scenes right now. We can see her waving. So special thanks to Alana Dispena. Soon we'll be posting a copy of the show transcripts and show notes at mountharvest.com. So if you want to take a look at everything that we talked about, you'll be able to find it there. We're going to have a blog section set up so that you can get all of these resources, the links and stuff like that. We also have a YouTube page where we're going to be releasing a lot of our content that way. But if you'd like to support The Harvest, you can visit our Patreon page at patreon.com/The Harvest Podcast. That is patreon.com/The Harvest Podcast. And any questions that you may have, you can reach me directly on Twitter at xgarcia.
And I am at Jonathan Harvest.
Cool. And if you have any longer questions, please feel free to write to us at info@mountharvest.com. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.